Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dharma Helper and this is DH Reviews. This is my Season 1 Episode 13 review of Gotham. If you missed any of my other Gotham reviews, there will be a link in the description of this video, as well as an annotation behind me on the screen. You can click either of those and they will take you right to the Gotham playlist that has all of my Gotham videos in it. Also, I'll go ahead and link in the description of this video playlists for all of my other reviews. You can check those out if you're interested. With that being said, Season 1, Episode 13 of Gotham was called Welcome Back, Jim Gordon. And in this episode, Jim uncovers the conspiracy and corruption surrounding the GCPD's vice unit when he takes on a vice cop and tries to kind of clear corruption in the GCPD in that particular way. And it's the first real attempt that Jim has at attacking the corruption within Gotham City since his reinstatement. And it has some interesting good and bad results in the episode. Also, we deal with the fallout with Fish Mooney and Carmine Falcone, and Penguin's reaction to that and his ascension in that regard. And those are really the two main storylines in the episode. The GCPD corruption thing with Jim, and then Penguin sort of dealing with the fallout with Fish. And then we get a little bit of a side thing with Bruce and Cat that was really kind of not too noteworthy, but again, it was a little bit interesting seeing that. So let's talk about characters in this episode, and let's talk first and foremost about Jim Gordon. As I said, he tries to go up against the GCPD's vice unit led by this guy Flask or Vask or whatever the guy's name was, and uncover the corruption that he's dealing with after a street-level thug is murdered, and then the guy who saw the murder is murdered inside the police department. And that really gets him going, and we see a side of Jim that I've been asking for in my reviews. If you guys have been following along, I've been asking for this sort of moment, and this is that moment for Jim, where he kind of takes that next step in his battle against the corruption in Gotham City. He makes a deal with Penguin where he says, because he's backed into a wall at one point where he can't get any evidence or any proof, and he needs that proof to get the support that he needs to go ahead and arrest Flask. And he goes to Penguin, and he gets Penguin's thugs to get the proof for him, but at a very significant cost. Now we've seen Jim playing by the rules of Gotham City and getting his hands dirty, and the repercussions of that. On the one hand, he did get his man, he did get his arrest, and he cleared out Flask and the corruption in the Vice Department and uncovered that conspiracy. He did get a lot of support in the GCPD now. The captain threw her support behind him, and some other officers were kind of along the same page. But again, the big thing was that deal with the devil, the deal with Penguin, where he pretty much intimidated this witness into coming forward and giving the information, giving the evidence that he needed to put Flask away. So that's going to weigh on Jim, I think, more than anything, is the idea that he's going to have to get his hands dirty. And how far is he willing to go to do that, to continue his fight with the commissioner who had Flask's back 100%, to continue his fight with the mayor who probably had a piece of it, to continue his fight with other corrupt police officers. What is the repercussions of that now, not only on a personal level for Jim, having to wrestle with the idea of becoming the thing that he's trying to fight, in a way, and making deals with people like Penguin and intimidating people, and on a personal level, but on a an external level almost, dealing with the repercussions with his relationship with Leslie Tompkins. And yes, I'm only going to say his relationship with Leslie, because his relationship with Leslie is the only relationship that I care to mention at that point. On a romantic level. His relationship with Harvey is going to change as a result of this. His relationship with Alfred and Bruce is going to change as a result of this. His relationship with Harvey Dent is going to change as a result of this. So the new Jim is going to have a lot to think about in terms of himself and the people around him and their safety, and what lines he's willing to cross. And that's really the crux of his episode, is this new Jim Gordon coming out of the Arkham Asylum. He's getting a lot more done, and he's more focused in terms of his mission, but he's paying a very heavy toll to get the results that he wasn't able to get previously. He's playing his version of the Gotham City game at this point. He's not with the program necessarily, but he's definitely working in a way that he shouldn't and isn't necessarily being proud of. So that's Jim. Let's transition to his partner, Harvey Bullock, in this episode, who shows a lot of heart in a lot of ways in this episode. He consults with Jim and says, stay out of it. And he gives him all this information about Flask and everything. He obviously cares a lot about Jim, and like I said in my other reviews, that relationship is as important for Harvey as it is for Jim. And so he cares a lot, and he doesn't want to see Jim get hurt, as much as he would kind of hide it and disguise it as sort of self-preservation and playing by the game and all this stuff. He cares so much about Jim, I think, that he, gives him this information and warns him to stay out of it and lay low. But at the end of the day, I believe that Harvey will have Jim's back, and I believe that Harvey will throw his support behind Jim. And we saw that in the warehouse scene where he, without hesitation, started throwing punches and helping Jim out. I believe that he'll continue to do that now more than ever, now that he's got the captain behind him, now that he's got all these other officers who are sort of considering the speech that Jim gave and changing their minds a little bit about the way that the GCPD works. And so I think that's one side of the Harvey Bullock coin here in terms of the heart that he showed in this episode. And the other side being his interaction with Fish. We've always sort of seen in the series that Fish and Harvey were very close. And in this episode, as Fish is escaping, Harvey gives her the resources that she needs and the help that she needs to get her out of Gotham City. And he gives her the same basic advice that he gave Jim. Stay out of it. Don't come back. Don't get involved in it again. Just stay alive. And they kiss. And so it's obvious that they have a love or an affection for each other. And I thought it was interesting that dynamic, that comparison between Harvey's relationship with Jim and then Harvey's relationship with Fish. Both people I think that he genuinely cares about, but he's telling them not to get involved in their respective wars or in their respective conflicts. He's trying to shield them away from it and get them to safety. And I think that speaks a lot to Harvey's character. And again, that goes back to the Spirit of the Lamb, Spirit of the Goat episode, where his partner got hurt. And I think that kind of affects his decision here, where rather than see his partner or his friend get hurt, he tells them not to bother and not to get in the way of danger, because he himself can't handle, I think, losing another partner or losing Fish. And much like Jim had to shift his focus from fighting the corruption in Gotham City, I think Harvey's going to have to shift his focus from shielding his friends and his companions to helping them and making sure that they're not in danger that way. Rather than saying don't get involved and don't get in danger, stand behind them and make sure that they can do what they want to do, but at the same time that you keep them safe. So that's Harvey for this episode. Real solid episode for Harvey, real interesting way to look at the character. Let's talk now about Penguin, since we're kind of transitioning into Penguin and Fish and all that. Let's talk about Penguin. And in this episode, as I said, he kind of deals with the repercussions and the fallout of the Fish Mooney betrayal. And he takes that club over, and this is really the highlight of the episode for me, was getting to watch Penguin sort of gloat and boast in the club, because we got to see so many different aspects of this character. When he's with his mother, we got to see the Penguin that's a loyal and diligent and loving son. When he's with his goons, we got to see the leader, the Penguin that's a man to be feared and respected. And when he's with Fish, we got to see his groveling, sort of sniveling nature. And then when Carmine Falcone's men arrived, he switched off and he was more the calculating, sort of underappreciated, sort of vicious mobster. You know, he's bragging to Fish about, I tricked you and I tricked Carmine Falcone. I'm with Carmine Falcone and I tricked Maroni and all this stuff. And nobody was smart enough to see it. I'm the smartest guy in the room here. And so we got to see a lot of different aspects of Penguin in this episode. And I think the best part was basically just the writers and the show giving him an excuse to basically show off. And that's what he did in this episode, was showing off and really letting loose and showing me at least, why he's the best character in the series, the most interesting character in the series. The one thing I did want to talk about Penguin was he's got to be real careful. You know, in that scene in the other episode when he's, you know, at the docks extorting those fishermen, he overextended himself. And I think he does the same thing here with his boasting and gloating and stuff. It's all fine and good to do a victory lap, but you got to make sure your enemy is down and out before you ever consider doing a victory lap like that. And Penguin's enemies are not down and they're not out. Fish is still alive, even though she's in exile. She's in hiding. Maroni's still alive and a threat. Carmine is a potential threat. So he's got a lot of balls still in the air, still juggling those problems that he's got. And it was foolish of him to consider it over and consider it done and allow himself that space to breathe and gloat. In the world that he lives in the mobster world, in the mafia world, you can't allow yourself time to breathe or gloat or think you're safe. He's not safe, and I think he's going to realize that soon. And I think that's another interesting thing about the show, is these progressions of these characters, and that's Penguin's progression in a way. He's learning how to be the mobster Penguin, the entrepreneur Penguin, the Penguin that deals with Batman. And it's going to be interesting to see how he learns in that regard, but also what he calls on Jim for. Because, you know, basically he said to Jim, friends don't owe friends, or whatever he said. You know, they just do favors because they're friends. But ultimately, Jim owes Penguin a favor at this point. And Penguin's going to want to cash in on that. As much as he dresses it up in flowery language and says that, you know, you're my friend also, Jim, so do me a favor. Whatever he says to get Jim to do whatever he wants. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Jim owes Penguin a favor. And he's going to cash in on that at some point. So that's Penguin for this episode. Let's talk now about Fish. And very briefly talk about Fish. There's not really much to talk about other than the fact that she's in exile at this point. And it's nice to see that the show is clearing the chessboard a little bit and getting some pieces out of the way and wrapping some things up. I wonder if Fish is gone for good, or if we'll see her come back at some point, and what her strategy will be coming back. She can't side with Carmine. She burned that bridge 10 times over when she went with her strategy. She can't side with Maroni, I don't think, because, you know, Maroni's not going to allow her to do to Carmine what do to him rather what he did to Carmine. She did to Carmine, and she doesn't really have anybody at that point. At this point in Gotham City, who can vouch for her or who can protect her other than Harvey, or who can really serve as her muscle other than Gil. So it's going to be interesting to see that, because, at this point, Fish is a rat. She's a snitch. Well, not a snitch, but she's a rat. She's a traitor. Again, in that mafia mentality, you don't deal with rats or traitors. So maybe she finds outside help. But I think she's going to make the same mistakes. And I think that's a theme of the episode, and a theme of one of the themes of the series, with Jim, with Fish, with Penguin. People making the same mistakes. And I think her mistake is her vendetta against Penguin, her over-aggressiveness, she doesn't take time to think things through. She just wants to kill Carmine and get Carmine out of the way at whatever the cost. She wants to kill Penguin, get Penguin out of the way at whatever the cost. And she doesn't take time to think her plans through to a satisfactory level. And I think that's going to do more harm to her than good if she decides to come back to Gotham City. So that's Fish for the episode. Let's wrap up my thoughts on characters and talk about the Riddler, Edward Nygma. In this episode, the relationship between Christine Kringle and Edward takes a little bit of a turn, as she kind of protects him or apologizes for Flask's behavior and the teasing that he got and all that stuff. And to me, I don't know what's worse, her being a part of that teasing and urging him towards being the Riddler in that way, or her leading him on, which it seems like she's doing, and being nice to him, but not necessarily being clear to him where the relationship is in that regard. And I think that's going to be a contributing factor here towards Edward's behavior moving forward. What is he gonna think? What is he gonna do now that Christine is being as nice as she can to him? I mean, it's an awkward situation, and he's an awkward guy. But she's not being too clear about the relationship. She's being, on the one hand, she's teasing him and stuff like that with Flask, and then she sort of apologizes for it, and she kind of... I feel like he's not getting the clearest message here. And that's going to be interesting to see the fallout from that. And to see... I want to see a more confident Edward moving forward. He's a little bit meek and a little bit... underspoken or soft-spoken, and he's not necessarily the confident sort of Riddler character that is in the comics. And I think now that he's got something to strive for in Christine, he's going to be more confident, and we're going to see that evolution in these couple of episodes, or maybe in season 2. But that's the Riddler for this episode, and again, I think that's dangerous. The relationship that he's got with Kristen is going to be dangerous, and I think that's going to drive him towards that side of evil or villainous sort of behavior, and that's going to be something to watch out for. And I think that covers my thoughts on characters in the episode. And like I said, there was stuff with Catwoman and Bruce, but nothing really that stuck out to me at the time to talk about, other than the stuff that we've been getting from them in their relationship and their back and forth. They did kind of sort of break up, but again, it's not really anything noteworthy. I'm sure that relationship will be on the mend at some point. So that covers my thoughts on characters. My overall thoughts on the episode: interesting episode. Not the best episode since they got back, but again, not too terrible. The one question that I did have was at the end of the last episode, when Jim and Leslie were in the locker room, they got a call about a shootout at the club, and then that shootout didn't happen until later on so is the timeline a little bit screwed up, or was that a shooting, like a filming thing, or what's going on there? So that kind of felt a little bit clunky and took me out of it, and kind of was a point against this episode. But other than that, I think it was a very smart move for them to start clearing the chessboard. Like I said, get Fish out of the way, get some of this corruption out of the way, and establish what's going on here in the second. And no real villain in the episode necessarily, other than Flask. So again, they're trying new things out. You know, not necessarily villain of the week type stuff, or stuff like that. It was interesting to see the focus here on the corruption of Gotham City and the corruption of GCPD and the victory that he got in that regard. So again, kind of, I'll leave the question to you guys. What did you think of the episode? What did you think of that scene where they said that the shooting happened, and then it didn't actually happen until much later in their investigation, much later in the timeline of events here? What is your thoughts on that? And I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts on the episode. So with that all being said, comment down below with your thoughts on the episode and on that in particular, or hit me up on Twitter at the DH Reviews. If you like this episode, leave a thumbs up if you like the review as well. Comment, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and you'll see reviews like this as they come out. Again, you can take a look in the description if you see anything you're interested in. We're going to be reviewing Better Call Saul. We're going to be reviewing Daredevil. We're going to be reviewing a bunch of interesting stuff coming up here. I'm debating what to do about Gallivant, because Gallivant is over at this point, and I haven't been keeping necessarily up with the reviews, but we'll figure that out by the end of this week. And we'll have some stuff about Scorpion at the end of this week as well. With all that being said, guys, thanks very much for your support on this and on my other videos. Keep up the support, share these videos, and hopefully we can grow the channel. Thanks very much for watching, and until next time, stay tuned.